We're living in extraordinary times in the Commonwealth because for the first time in my memory, and maybe in yours too, state government is taking notice of our prison population, the incidence of recidivism, what that means to the families of the Commonwealth, what that means to our communities, and the state government's taking some unprecedented steps to address that issue. I'm grateful in my day job, I work in state government, and I had the opportunity to work on a bill that you may have heard about. It has to do with your driver licenses and your ability to fly. Well, we got that done. But one thing we were able to include in that is the authority for my department to go to Department of Corrections facilities and process applications for identification cards and driver licenses for inmates with scheduled release dates.
That's good.
And so rather than spending 4 months trying to get an ID card or a driver license, it's going to be handed to them as a membership card to society again. The Kentucky General Assembly did that, y'all. Yep. As part of my job, I have the pleasure of working with our next speaker and working with her boss, Secretary John Tilley, who's really a leading force in the conversation about combating recidivism, promoting successful reentry, and improving our Department of Corrections and the Justice Cabinet. And he's only successful because of our speaker. Jessie Halladay is the Senior Policy Advisor for the Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet. And during her first year with the Cabinet, she's worked extensively on criminal justice reform and reentry efforts, trying to find smarter, more efficient ways to deal with Kentucky's high incarceration rates while keeping our communities safe. Prior to the Cabinet, she worked as the Communications Director for Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell, and prior to that, spent 10 years as the public safety reporter for the Courier-Journal. So please join me in welcoming Jessie Halladay.
Thank you all so much for inviting me to be here. It's a real honor to be in front of a group like this because you are the people that I need as ambassadors for reentry and working with ex-offenders. And I have a little note card too, Sherry, but it's not that likely I'm going to use it too much. You know, I spent a lot of years sitting in living rooms of moms and dads that lost their loved one to a violent act, asking for their thoughts on why that happened. I sat in living rooms with moms and dads who have kids in prison, hearing what the impact of that was. And at a certain point in my life, I decided I was tired of writing about that. I wanted to try to do something about that. And sharing those stories was doing something to help by sharing it with everyone else, but I needed to get more hands-on. So I spent 2.5 years working in the Hall of Justice, which is an eye-opening and enlightening experience if you've ever worked in a courthouse. And then I had this really wonderful opportunity last April to come and work for state government. And full disclosure, I'm a Democrat. So my mother said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Mom, here's the thing. There's one thing Democrats and Republicans agree on, and that's criminal justice reform. That we are locking up far too many people, and we're not making enough opportunities for them to be successful when they come back out, so then they're coming right back into the system. We have about 24,000 people who are serving felony sentences in our state prisons and our jails, and we have no room at the inn. We have a serious overcrowding problem. We are spending almost $500 million every year, this year more than that. We go back to the General Assembly every year and ask for additional money because we've gone over budget because we have too many people incarcerated. We spend less than 0.5% on reentry in the state of Kentucky. That is not acceptable. And that is what Secretary Tilley believes, that is what I believe. We have to do better at finding ways for people to be successful when they come out. Now, we're not naive. We've been in this a long time. Not everybody's going to be successful. There are some people who don't want to turn their lives around, and we can't make them do that. What we can do is try to eliminate some of the barriers that exist, like the driver's licensing piece. You have no idea how happy we are in corrections that now transportation has the authority to do that. And John Mark knows that I'm going to call him and have a meeting pretty darn soon so we can figure out how we can start doing that. We are also, and for those praying people in the room, I could use some prayers because on next Wednesday, I hope to get the very last step of Senate Bill 120, which is concurrence from the Senate. And I don't want to jinx it, so I'm going to knock on wood, but we expect them to concur, and then we will have this really amazing piece of legislation that does a lot of good things for reentry. Right now, our occupational licensing boards, many of them have automatic bans. If you have a felony, you can't even apply for an occupational license to cut my hair. So that will no longer exist with Senate Bill 120. That has been out there for years. That does not mean that a board of licensure cannot deny a license if they feel like the person's not a good risk, or if perhaps you committed a murder while you were cutting someone's hair, and that doesn't seem like a good thing to let you do anymore. They can certainly deny you having a license. But we are going to remove the automatic ban. I watched Governor Bevin sign into law fair chance, sign into executive order policy for state, fair chance employment. So if you are applying for a state job, there is no more box to check on your application. So that doesn't apply to private businesses, but in the Commonwealth, we believe that if we lead by example, then other businesses will follow. And we think that taking that box off, again, you can deny someone a job if you don't think their record warrants them having the job, but at least you're going to give them an opportunity to come and interview and make their case to you. There's all kinds of wonderful things in this bill that I think you all, as people who believe in reentry and redemption and second chances, third chances, fourth chances, will be proud of. We're trying to think outside of the box as far as incarceration. We're trying to give an opportunity for jails to run reentry centers so we can help with that transition. So you spent 15 years in prison, maybe we'll send you to a jail where we can step you down, give you some more programming, get you ready to go out. My vision for reentry in Kentucky is that it would start on day one in prison. You come in, the very next thing we're going to do is try to get you ready to come back out, whether that's in a year, 2 years, 15 years, 20 years. 95% of the people who are coming into our system are coming back out, and we want them to be better neighbors. Now, there is this misconception among some who would be anti-reform that that is somehow soft on crime. That is not what we're talking about. We want people to be held accountable for the crimes that they commit, but they cannot stay in prison forever. We cannot isolate them from our communities. We don't want them to come back and be terrible neighbors. We want them to be productive again. So we need to do our part and make sure they have the training inside. We've just started some apprenticeship programs in 3 of our adult facilities and 3 of our juvenile facilities. We have this ability under this new law to have private industry come into our prisons, have people work for a fair wage. That means they can pay their child support. That means they can pay their restitution. It gives them a purpose. It gives them a skill. So when they come out, they can find a job. This bill will also make it possible for D-level felons who are already serving time in jails to have work release. We have a shortage of workers in Kentucky. We have people calling our jails asking for workers. We're not allowed under the Constitution to work them for the state's benefit. We don't want to do that. We want them to have a job that when they finish their sentence, they can keep, so they can pay their rent, so that they can pay their child support, so that they can make restitution for whatever crime they committed. And this bill will make that possible. don't usually get applause when I'm at groups because I'm like, you know, the bad guys in corrections, so this is really awesome. I just want to encourage you all. You know, we've been working with Dean and with Mark to try to do a pilot project with U of L and Volunteers of America so that we can do better transition planning for some inmates. We're hoping to get that started off the ground this year. We have lots of big dreams. If I have my way, at the start of 2018, reentry and corrections will look drastically different. We do not have the resources to give people the transition plans they need and deserve and would make them successful. We're bringing about 4,000 people in revocations. Our recidivism rate for 3 years is 44%. Only 5.5% of that is new felony crime. Most of it is supervision violations. That means they did not have the support they needed to be successful on the outside. They weren't able to complete treatment. They couldn't find transportation to get to their treatment. They couldn't find a job so they could pay their rent, so it was easier to go back to what they knew before. And we can do better. We've been working the last few months on there's so much exciting stuff going on. We've been working to re-energize the Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives under the Governor's Office. One of the major things that group is going to do is to start a mentoring program for the prison system that will combine our whole statewide network. We have lots of groups like Commission Behind Bars and Beyond that do this work, but they're not connected together. They're not connected to us at corrections in the way that they need to be and deserve to be. And we need to loop everyone together and try to find ways to provide support. Because as Sherry said, she burned a lot of bridges with her family, and that took time to rebuild. And in the interim, she had a support network with this group that kept her going. Not everyone has that. Most people don't have that. And they don't know how to say, I'm sorry to their family. They don't know how to make amends. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do if they are running late for work or the bus didn't show up. We need to be able to step up and provide that kind of support for people. And I know that this administration believes in that. I know that Secretary Tilley believes in that. I know that I'm spending my Friday night with you because I believe in that. And it is a huge culture change. Sometimes I want to knock my head against the wall because I can't make people understand we need to do something different. But it is worth it. It is happening. It's a slow process. Sometimes people are frustrated with us because things don't happen as quickly as we would like them. Maybe Dean knows a little something about that. But we are getting there. We are working on it, and we are making progress. And I appreciate you all for being part of that. I'm going to count on you to be our advocates. We will need you to call your representatives, your senators, to tell them that this is important, that this is not soft on crime. This is about good investment, both for the Commonwealth and for the people who live here. Victims as well. So thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you for having me here with me tonight. Appreciate it so much.